Waive your inheritance or this envelope goes to your employer. My stepmother didn't offer condolences. She didn't mention my grandmother's funeral was 3 days ago. She just slid a legal waiver across the study desk like she was closing a business deal. When I didn't pick up the pen, my father walked to the door and shut it. Then he nodded toward Diane's purse, where a manila envelope sat like a loaded weapon. That envelope contains proof you embezzled from a former client, Elise. You sign the waiver or your forensic license is revoked by Monday morning. My grandmother wasn't even cold yet. Before I tell you what I did with that pen, if this story hits you, subscribe to Scorched Ties right now. Like this video. Drop a comment telling me the worst thing a family member ever did after someone died. I'm reading every single one. Now let me finish. I looked at the locked door, then back at my father. Panic is a currency I refuse to spend. In my profession, when you find a discrepancy in the books, you don't react. You trace. And right now, the discrepancy was sitting at the head of the table. A man I once called Dad wearing my dead grandmother's reading glasses like a trophy. I stared at those glasses, and for a split second, I wasn't 31. I was 8 years old standing in the hospital doorway watching my grandmother braid my hair while my mother's heart monitor flatlined in the next room. Grandma Ruth held me so tight I could feel her heartbeat replacing the one that just stopped. She whispered, "You will always have me, little bird. Always." 8 months later, my father married Diane. 11 months after that, Jard moved into my bedroom, and I slept on a fold-out couch in the basement. The little bird got caged so the golden boy could spread his wings. I looked at Diane's manicured fingers resting on the waiver and Martin's jaw flexing with rehearsed authority. They weren't here to grieve Ruth. They were here to gut her estate and serve it to Jard on a silver plate. In that moment, I mentally closed the casket on every fantasy I ever had about my father choosing me. The grief didn't smell like flowers. It smelled like something rotting beneath a beautiful house. The daughter in me died in that study, and the forensic auditor opened her eyes. I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I let my shoulders drop and my breathing slow. Fear makes people predictable. And right now, I needed to be the most unpredictable person in the room. If I sign this waiver, I said, my voice, so calm it scared even me, the probate court flags it within 48 hours. Diane blinked, her rehearsed confidence cracking for a fraction of a second. That's not how waivers work. It's exactly how they work when the original will is contested, I said. Grandma Ruth's will was filed with the county 18 months ago. Any amendment requires 2 independent witnesses and a licensed attorney present at signing. I looked at the man sitting in the corner pretending to be a lawyer. The notary Diane had hired from a strip mall office to play dress up. He isn't a probate attorney, Diane. He's a mobile notary. I can see the stamp kit in his jacket pocket. The moment I sign this waiver, the court cross references it against the original filing. They'll see the amendment was executed without proper witness protocol. That's not a civil dispute. That's felony document fraud. Class C, 3 to 7 years. The notary stood up quietly and left the room. Nobody stopped him. I watched Martin's face cycle through confusion, then fear, then something uglier. Calculation. So what do you want? He asked. His voice dropped the fatherly act entirely. I don't want anything from you, I said. But I know how to protect this estate from the mess you've created. If the probate court opens an investigation, they'll audit everything. Your finances, Diane's finances, Jard's accounts. Everything connected to Ruth's estate gets frozen for months. I let that sink in. You want to protect Jard's inheritance, I continued. We transfer the property into a blind trust tonight, a holding entity that shields it from probate review. I structure it as an estate preservation vehicle. The court sees a clean transfer. No flags, no audit, no felony charges. It was a fortress built on sand, a beautiful architecture of financial terminology designed to overwhelm 2 people who never once asked what I actually did for a living. They just knew I worked with money. They never cared enough to learn I was the person companies hired to catch people exactly like them. Diane narrowed her eyes. Who controls the trust? It's a neutral entity, I said without blinking. The beneficiary is determined by the original will's intent. She heard what she wanted to hear. She thought neutral meant jarred. Do it, she said, pushing Martin's laptop toward me. Martin hesitated, his hand hovering over the keyboard. His password was jarred 2012. Of course. Elise, this trust, it transfers back to us once probate clears, right? I looked him dead in the eyes. The trust follows the will, Dad. The asset goes where Ruth intended. It was the most honest thing I said all night. He just didn't know it. They signed. Digital signature. Accepted. Then again, accepted. The notary stamp turned green on screen. The seal was certified. Martin exhaled and reached for the manila envelope. Now give us the waiver. I picked up the envelope instead, opened it. Inside were fabricated bank statements with my name edited onto someone else's transactions. I fed every page into the desk shredder. The sound filled the room like grinding teeth. What are you doing? Martin shouted. That was our leverage. Leverage requires truth, I said, holding up my phone. And this conversation has been recorded since I walked through the door. Cloud backed, time-stamped, encrypted. You just admitted on tape to fabricating evidence to extort a licensed forensic auditor. That's 3 felonies in one sentence. The silence was surgical. Diane stood up slowly. You lied, she whispered. The trust isn't neutral. I said the trust follows the will. And it does. Ruth's original will leaves this house to me. The trust is mine. The property is mine. Everything Ruth wanted me to have is now legally protected from both of you. You stole my mother's death from me when I was 7. You stole my bedroom, my college fund, my childhood. You took Ruth's last years and spent them convincing her to change a will she never wanted to change. But Ruth was smarter than you. She told me about the amendment. She called me from the hospice and said Diane is trying to rewrite everything, little bird. So I prepared. 3 years of preparation. Every conversation logged. Every forged document traced. Every dollar you drained from my life cataloged and calculated. Martin lunged across the desk. I stepped back and held the phone higher. I'm streaming to a secure server. Touch me and the felony count doubles. He froze, his hands shaking, not from rage, from the realization that his daughter had been 3 moves ahead since before Ruth died. You can contest the trust, I said, walking toward the door. But to do that, you'll need to explain the forged will amendment to a judge. You'll need to explain the fabricated embezzlement evidence. You'll need to explain where my college fund went and why Jard's failed restaurant was funded the same month my education account was empty. I opened the door. Be out of this house in 30 days. After that, the forensic audit goes to the IRS and the district attorney. I suggest you start packing. 48 hours later, Jard drove to the house and tried to change the locks. The security cameras I installed during Ruth's hospice care caught every second. Trespassing, criminal mischief. Smiled Jard. It's all on the cloud. 30 days later, Martin and Diane checked into a weekly rate motel off the interstate. The house sold at market value. I used the proceeds to open my own forensic consulting firm. I named it after Ruth's maiden name. Last week, I was unpacking boxes in my new office when I found something tucked inside Ruth's favorite book. A handwritten note on lavender paper. I knew you'd fight, little bird. I knew you'd win, fly. If your family ever made you feel like you had to earn the love they gave someone else for free, you're not alone. Subscribe to Scorched Ties. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. More stories are coming.